Rev up your engines!
Well, now here's why you must complain to people if they're ripping you off, because maybe it'll stop. Here's an email from Robert, and Robert says, Scotty, today I brought my Camry for 36-month service at the dealer. Rather than buy the recommended service package, I said oil change, tire rotation, and engine air filter. I checked their online prices. When I came back to the par, they wanted to charge me much more than that online price. I put my foot down and said no. They finally agreed to the online price. It pays to be firm. Yes, isn't that true? They try to sell you a bunch of stuff, says, no, I just want this. And they say, okay. Then they try to charge you more than what they advertised in the paper for the same service, right? Basically, what I'm telling people is don't even go to those places. The dealers have such overheads. They're just waiting for an excuse to rip you off, selling you stuff you don't need. Before you go, check prices, use your phone, try to find an independent place. People like me that are honest, that don't have $3 million overhead at their shops, You don't need to go to a fancy place with all this overhead. The guy's fixing your car isn't getting paid all that much anyways. And he's doing the work. You might as well change your own oil if you're smart, right? But if not, find places that do it. Find mechanics that do it outside of the dealership. The bigger the overhead, the more you're going to pay. That's just the way that it goes. Here's why I say don't buy Chrysler in the first place. And if you do, you may be in a pickle. George Carter just sent me an email. His engine went out on his 2017 Rubicon, right? It was still under the Mopar extended warranty, and he bought an even further extended warranty. It shows you what junk Chrysler makes and how horrible their dealerships are. He starts out saying, I have brought my vehicle for repair over 35 times, not counting multiple trips for the same problem they didn't fix. February 2021, the dealer said I needed a new engine, and Chrysler wouldn't cover it under the warranty. The engine was still under a 5-year, 60,000-mile warranty. I had an extended warranty, so I brought it in to a different dealership. They said Chrysler approved rebuilding half of the engine. After 3,000 miles, it started acting up. This time was excessive oil consumption. They had 2 500-mile consumption tests. Each time it lost 2 quarts. Still won't pay for it, and the extended warranty won't either. We returned to Arizona after 2 years of not having a vehicle, and I had to pay $10,130 for a Chrysler remanufactured engine. I hired a lawyer, and Chrysler said, well, we'll give you $4,000, of which 2 goes to the lawyer and 2 to me. I declined it. What scumbags? First, it was under warranty, the regular 60,000-mile warranty, because it had less than 60,000 miles, and Chrysler refused to replace the engine, even though their own dealership said it needed an engine, right? Then he had an extended warranty. The extended warranty refused to pay for it, that he had paid extra for, and he had to pay $10,300 to get a new engine, a remanufactured engine put in out of his pocket. I find it amazing that the Chrysler dealer did put an engine in when he paid for it, but no, this warranty won't cover it. It just shows you that these warranties are often not worth the paper they're printed on. They find exclusions here, exclusions there. They make up stories. In this case, the dealer said it needed an engine, but Chrysler refused to pay. It just shows you how these companies operate. Once they get your money, they do not care about you. They do not care about anything other than they got your money and they don't care. They took his money to put another engine in when he paid for it out of his pocket, right? I tell people, don't buy these things. They're junk. Look at that. Thing had less than 60,000 miles, the engine blew up on it. Just garbage. It shows what garbage Chrysler's making in the first place. But the fact that they didn't even stand behind it is unbelievable. I hope that it gets a good lawyer this time, not one that just gets, we'll give you $4,000 and it cost them 10,300 to put another engine in. They should pay for it. They should pay damages for fraud for not doing it. Get a better lawyer in that case. But do we really want to hire lawyers and go to court for vehicles? No. So take my advice. Don't buy their pieces of crap in the first place. Frank White 555 says, should a repair shop give you your old parts back? Quick and simple. When you take your car to get it worked on, does the shop always give you back the old parts? If not, should I ask? Well, if you want to, yeah, show that it's honest about it. Now, there are some things like, say you're getting an alternator. They're almost all rebuilt. They got to send the old alternator back, and they get a core credit. Now, you can say, I want to see it. And then when you're done, you could look at it and then give it back to them. Or if you wanted to keep it, what's the core? If they say the core is $40, you'd pay $40 for the core charge. If it's brand new parts, of course, yeah. You have every right to the old ones if they're brand new parts to make sure they actually change the thing. Of course you do. It's your car, It's just the remanufactured ones, you have to pay a core if you don't give them the old one that they remanufactured for the next guy. So that'd be the only reason they wouldn't give it back to you. JKJ says, I have a 2021 Toyota Corolla and the steering wheel blew off. I bought my 2021 Corolla Hybrid brand new. I was rear-ended when I was approaching construction. It accelerated me from 9 miles an hour to 36 miles an hour. But my steering wheel flew off of the dash and ended in the back seat. So I'm sitting there with no steering wheel, no airbags, and a hollow metal pipe sticking out of the dash in front of me. I wrote to Toyota, and they said they couldn't find any evidence of a defect. Well, my steering wheel laying in the back seat is pretty evidence to me. What's your advice on this? What happened? Luckily, you were rear-ended. Your car's accelerating, so you were pushed back in your seat. If you would have been pushed forward from a front-end collision and that steering wheel came flying off, you'd be going towards it. It would have hit you. You might have ended up impaled on that little pipe that's sticking out when it was gone. So at least a good thing you were rear-ended. Now, obviously, they're not supposed to end up in the back seat. Either it got hit and it wasn't on there right and it flew off, or more likely, I'm assuming the airbag went off and somehow it was made incorrectly. And instead of the airbag inflating and holding you, the airbag must have gone backwards and it launched the steering wheel off of it into the back seat. I've never personally seen this. I mean, that's one heck of a story, I gotta say. And it obviously is some kind of a defect. There's no way the steering wheel should be in the back seat, right? There is definitely a problem. I'm assuming probably if the airbag went off, it probably launched itself because instead of going towards you, it went backwards, and it was like a rocket. Instead of pushing the airbag towards you, which would have pushed the steering wheel back in place, it went backwards and it launched it up. You're lucky it didn't take your head off. The manufacturers always blame it on something. Oh, no, it's nothing we did. The wreck caused it. Well, there's no reason a wreck would make it go that way. H2O Man says, what caused the oil stain? I got no 2 Tundra, 186,000 miles. The cams and the underside of the valve covers on the side with the PCV valve have a light bronze tinted stain. They look perfectly fine. On the other side, they're all shiny. There's no varnish, just where the PCV valve is. What caused that? Okay, well, the PCV sucks in vapors from the crankcase, positive crankcase ventilation and burn them, right? But somehow, some of that got inside and the oil, and it made a little stain. It's not going to hurt anything. If it's covered up with dried up carbon and stuff, that's a bad thing, but yours just got stained. And I see that all the time. It's got 186,000 miles. I wouldn't worry about it. I would buy another PCV valve. Perhaps it's letting a little too much oil in, then the oil stained it a little, but it's really nothing to worry about. They often get stained. I've taken many of them apart, and they're stained all over the place, but it's just a stain. As long as it's not built up carbon sludge, it doesn't hurt anything. But I changed the PCV valve. Probably help it a little bit, but it's nothing to worry about. Stefanzo says, my truck won't start, but if I leave it for 2 hours, it will start. I got an 08 Ford F-150. I replaced the starter. I find it won't start. I fiddle with the wires. It doesn't do anything. But if I let it sit for 2 hours, it starts up with no problem. First thing you want to do, have your battery and alternator tested. Because let's say your alternator is weak. It doesn't charge the battery. And then it won't start because there's not enough power. But realize, batteries in your car are lead acid batteries. And the lead can react with the acid and create electricity if it's just sitting, probably enough to start it. So if your alternator's weak, that's common. That'll happen. Replace the alternator. But the battery itself would be kind of weak too, and you'd have to replace the battery. Whenever you have the battery and alternator system problems, you want them both tested because it could be one, it could be the other, it could be both of them entirely. But I've seen many cars do that have a weak alternator. That got enough to run it, but then they won't restart the car. And then when it sits, it builds up enough to start it up again. That's about the only reason that if you got to wait 2 hours. The only other possible one would be have your alarm system tested. It could be that somehow after you drive, the alarm system won't work right and the car won't start. But then for some reason, after 2 hours, the alarm system resets them. That's the only other way I've seen something like that happen, because you said you wiggle the wires and stuff, makes no difference. It could be that the alarm system's got a problem, and after you drive it, it doesn't turn itself off for 2 hours, and miraculously it does. So have that tested too. Jerome says, I have an 03 Ford Explorer. The heater core is leaking. I haven't decided if I'm going to bypass it or try a stop leak. It's so cold here, I really need heat. The problem is, the heater core's in the dash. It costs a fortune to replace it, as you found out. Probably be over $1,000. So, bypass it is simple. You just buy a little bypass plastic connector. You take the 2 hoses off under the hood and connect them together, and it bypasses the heater. You won't have a heater, but it won't leak anymore. You could, if you want to try, the bars is the best one I've seen. The bars leak sealer. But very rarely do sealers work on the radiator heater core system. The heater core is basically a small radiator in your dash. Then the big one's in front of the engine, right? The flow In the big one, in the front, your regular radiator is pretty good, and the sealers often can work. But the flow in the heater core inside the dash, that's a tiny radiator in the dash called the heater core, is very low. And generally, sealers do not work very well, and sometimes they'll just clog the stupid things up. I mean, what the heck? Give it a try. And if it helps, great. If not, you're either going to have to take it all apart to get heat, or you could get an auxiliary heater. They do make auxiliary heaters for cars. Hook up to the battery, they're electric to heat. You might try something like that. I've seen people try that. Or some guy said, really want heat, they'll just get a heater core and they will connect it to the heater hoses, and it won't be in the dash with all that crap. It'll just be under the glove box, have a little fan, and it'll get real hot. And then they could put a little valve on. If it got too hot, they could turn the valve off so it didn't get too hot. If you really want to try to modify something, that can be done. Or you might wish to try plugging an electric one. You can connect directly to the battery, have a little switch to turn it on. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.